And some of you, these are nice accommodations, but in Agura, the ground was paved in gold and gumdrops.
Gumdrops? Gum with a G?
Yes. And the trees hung not only with bangers and onions, yes, but an occasional vegetarian dish as well. It was a paradise. Yeah. And the Lord Almighty did raise the mongers out of the filth and muck that lived in the privies of Agura. And out of this muck fashioned he, the Lord God, did fashion the mongers. Huzzah for the mongers.
Is that on the 7th day?
I don't know what day it was. I wasn't there.
Probably the 18th, 19th. They had a lot of things to do.
And the Lord said unto the mongers, I shall give thee thy... I don't know why he spoke BFA, but he did. I shall give thee the great gift of monging wares unto the Shire. Thou shalt have pig's heads, and rotting fish, and rancid lard, and what they need most, the enema. And he rose up mongers from the muck and mire, and he gave them these gifts to mong. And so it went. And the good Lord did spake unto them again, and did say, I ask but one thing of thee all do I ask. And the mongers said, what that? And the good Lord said, he didn't give them much in the way of praise, all right, with all that other stuff. And the good Lord said, I will tell thee, thou must keep thy gross props fresh and cool with the goodly ice that I shall provide thee. But on Sunday evening thou must throw away the gross props when thou dost empty the ice, so they do not fester and rot during the heat of the day, during the week when you've gone off to do other things. And they said, other things? We can't do fair every day? No, you idiot. Get alive. So that was the rule. And mongers followed it for many generations, down through the ages, century after century, millennia after millennia. They prospered in Agura. Yes. And so it went. And every Saturday morning, the mongers would go to their giant ice chest, open it up, deposit fresh ice within, and their fresh gross props therein. But this one particular day, the mongers began to open the great ice chest, and there issued forth such a stench, such an odor, such a vile, overwhelming cloud that they nearly perished. They all fell back, their eyes watering, right, ripping their noses from their face. I can't take it. And the lid of the lockbox, of the icebox closed, and they stood back aghast. What has befallen the icebox that the good Lord gave us many millennia ago? What could have happened to it? Oh Lord, why have you forsaken us? Well, we should open it and see what that is. You open it. No, you open it. Come on, it was your idea. You open it. He's the youngest. Let's let him open it. No, he's the oldest. Let him open it. So finally, they got the youngest, a young hairless lad. His puffy cheeks resembled the buttocks of a wee bab. Innocent and wide-eyed was he, right? And they shoved him forward, and they booted him in the backside. And they picked up a nearby piece of wood, and they beat him with it. Yay! And then the guildmaster turned on him and urinated upon him. And said, if you don't open that, we're gonna get robbed. So the wee lad, he stepped forward in the box as the others stood back in trepidation, trembling. And he flung open the box. The stench emerged once again in a huge cloud in the shape of a giant green mushroom that hung over the entire lockup. The mongers threw cloths over their faces, and they edged forward to the box. And there, within the box, was the largest, most humongous, most grotesque pile of squirming maggots that had ever existed in the history of the world, and certainly within the history of Argura. Aye, it was white and gleaming and large. Aye, it was larger than his paunch.
It was big.
And it glistened in the sun, and we stepped forward. Oh my God! How could this happen? Where did they come from? And there, amongst all the squirming and within the pile, was a slip of dried, tattered paper, and on the paper was written "pig parts." And it suddenly dawned on us that someone had left pig parts in the lockbox all week long in the blazing sun. Pig's ears, pig's snouts, pig's feet, pig's tails. Who knew? For they no longer existed. They had been replaced by this giant heap of maggots.
Delicious.
And we realized that God had sent the maggots to us in punishment for breaking his first commandment of always clean out the lockbox. All right. Now, you're starting to get the idea this could just be a tale of warning for new mongers to clean the lockbox? Oh, it's not! It's much more than that. So, what to do with the maggots? Oh my God, get a shovel. No, it's too disgusting. Tip over the box and shake them out. No, they'll just be a big pile in the middle of the lockup. What do we do? What do we do? Bring some kerosene, douse them, and set them ablaze. No, the whole lockup will burn down, and possibly a good portion of Argura.
Argura.
So then, yes. Jonathan Hall. Yes. You may have heard of him.
Yeah, he used to be somebody.
He used to be somebody around this craft. He was a clever lad, perhaps a bit sadistic and ever practical, and it was kind of cheap too. He said, we spend all that money at chicken feed, we have 2 chickens, just throw them into the box. So all these light bulbs went off over our heads. Ding, 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 ding. Jonathan, surely thou art blessed by the Lord. The Holy Spirit has occupied thee and given thee enlightenment. So we grabbed the 2 chickens. And one was a red chicken named Ralph, and one was a white chicken named Bob. And we brought them up to the box, and we said, all right, chickens, you're going in. Take one for the guild. And we flung the chickens into the box. And they fluttered down, not too gracefully, and went plop in the middle of these maggots. They were about waist high, squirming out. And first they were stunned. And they started to look around. They looked around. They looked around. And Ralph turned to Bob and said, holy shit, man, we're in paradise. And Bob just said, what? And began eating. And they began pecking and eating and gorging, sucking in maggots faster than anything we'd ever seen in our lives. And we'd sucked a few maggots in our day.
It was the 70s.
Yay. And so suddenly, it was the 70s. And suddenly, one of the mongers, I think it was Sherman Khan, said, well, you know what? I'll bet $1 that Red Ralph's eats more than White Bob. and somebody else said, I'll cover that bet. And Jonathan said, I'm taking book. Suddenly, all the money was passing hands. We were exchanging. We were making bets on whether Red Ralph or White Bob would win this maggot eating competition. So they ate and they gorged and they ate and they gorged, and it seemed to go on till like late Sunday night, and they were still eating, still eating. We hadn't left. We didn't mong all weekend. We didn't work. We never saw the rest of the fair that weekend, and nobody missed us. So then They were getting near the end, and both chickens by this time were so engorged, they were distended to about 2 or 3 times their normal size, and their legs couldn't hold them up anymore, and they were. And then they could sort of roll to one side and get a maggot, and roll the other side and get a maggot. And then pretty soon, there was, maggot juice running down their beaks and their necks, under their feathered chest. And then pretty soon it looked like there was no more maggots. And we said, well, it was too difficult to see who ate the most maggots. And did anybody notice who really ate the last maggot? And they started arguing. Oh, it was Red Ralph. No, it was White Bob. And then suddenly, a little mongette in the back, right? Her name was Cindy Lou Maggot. She steps forward and she says, "Look, there's one more." And there at the back of the lockbox, crawling up the side, almost to the top of the lockbox, was a single solitary soul maggot.
The survivor of the Great Maggot Massacre.
And Bob and Ralph noticed him at the same time. Their eyes nearly came out of their heads. This one maggot, but there they were, engorged to 4 or 5 times their original size. And they tried to roll that way, but boom, they fell forward. They tried to lift their legs, but their legs were buried beneath about 200 pounds of chicken fat. Finally, they realized that if they fell to one side, they could roll. So they both fell to the side, began to roll in the direction of the escaping maggot. And they both hit the wall at about the same time. And they lifted their heads up, bing, and zeroed in on the maggot. Now came the real challenge. How could they possibly lift themselves up the 18 inches it would require to reach the top of the lockbox? Well, Ralph tried to raise himself. Bob tried to raise himself. They couldn't do it. But they tried again and again and again. And suddenly they somehow managed to right themselves. They began to stretch their necks. They began to draw in their fat, their heaps, so that their bodies elongated. And they got closer and closer and closer to the escaping maggot. But all the time, he was inching or millimetering closer and closer to the top of the box. And just as he got to the edge, Red Ralph closed the gap and sucked him down, and everyone cheered and went wild, and Johnny was paying off bets, and everybody was stunned. Red Ralph was a hero. Let's pick him up and hold him over our heads and parade him about. So
Good idea. Good idea.
So, the biggest monger amongst us, he played Tinker, and he had a Tinker's cart, and he just used to carry the Tinker's cart around on one shoulder. He stepped forward, and he grabbed Red Ralph and heaved him in the air, but in doing so, he squeezed him, and a veritable fire hose of the undigested maggot was shooting forth from the mouth and showering all the mongers like a white and red rain of maggot. But we were cheering because our lockbox was clean. And perhaps the Lord would forgive us. But no, the good Lord said we had broken the law. Yet we must leave Agura, and I will set a giant pig with a flaming pitchfork at the gates of the garden of Agura, so that you may never return. So we went on a mighty trek. By that time, I was leading the mongers, the prophet Geraldus. And we traveled for 40 years in the desert. Yes, Southern California is a sucky, dry place. We traveled 40 years in the desert and stumbled eventually upon this little patch of paradise. Not quite Agura, but what the hell, the local authorities would take us. And so we were reestablished here under new leadership. I left the guild at that point. I wanted to go start a maggot raising farm. But the law continues. Remember, clean out the lockbox at the end of the weekend, or the Lord shall smite thee in odd, mysterious, and disgusting ways.